If you have ever wanted to know how to deal with death of your mother as a nurse, stay tuned for this episode. Hello, fellow nurse entrepreneurs. One of the things that I've always wanted to do was always wanted to help nurses work from anywhere, pretty much have the flexibility, pretty much have their freedom so that they could do whatever they wanted to do.
Joining VP Nursing was one of the best decisions that I could have ever made. If I was to have a regret, it would be that I didn't join sooner.
If they wanted to be with their children, if they wanted to be with their families, they can do exactly what they wanted to do.
Ola is the type of person, she's not going to let you stay the same. The way she levels up her clients in every area of their lives.
I could not have imagined being a nurse with my own business, being in this space with so many amazing people, with a coach that 1,000,000% cares about what my outcome is going to be.
And so here at VP Nursing, we teach nurses how to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money, owning their own time, building profitable nurse coaching, consulting, and service-based businesses. And so now we're at the beach and we're working at the beach and we're having a great time. We're doing a brand photo shoot. It's an amazing time. So if you want to learn how to work from anywhere around the world, creating that flexibility, creating that freedom for yourself, but monetizing the knowledge that you already have, join us at VP Nursing Business Academy. Hello, everyone. So I'm super excited. We have got Dr. Kamala McGee. So Kamala, tell us who you are in your own words.
Good morning. I'm Kamala C. McGee. C stands for Charlene, and I am strong-willed. I'm a nurse entrepreneur. I've been a nurse for 33 years, and I was in the military for 33 years. I'm very compassionate. I love helping people, changing situations, changing lives, and just connecting with individuals on a human level and just seeing them for who they are and motivating them to do better and be better, which only improves who I am as a person and as a human being to be more effective and impactful in life.
I love that. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for your service in the military. It can be hard, I'm sure, sometimes. And so just thank you for that service. Now, let me ask you a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur. Like I typically ask, why did you even become a nurse? What was that? What did that look like? And why did you go into the military?
Let's start with why I went into the military. I signed up when I was 17, so I needed my mom's permission to do it. So she gave me what for. She talked to people, tried to convince me not to go. She even had a long, strong conversation with the recruiter. But I went in because I wanted something different. I grew up in the projects, Liberty View here in Danville. And you didn't get to see a lot of things growing up. And I was always told that you'll never amount to nothing growing up in that project area. But I just wanted to see something different. And I did. I experienced a lot of different personalities, cultural changes, and connections that made you realize that people are more alike than they are different. It's just how the culture that they grew up in. So that made me more open to seeing people and accepting people along this journey. And becoming a nurse, that was a God thing. I started off as a CNA once I got out the military, but I was trying to sleep one night and I kept hearing the voice, go to school for nursing. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to be a nurse. I was in computer field and I'm not doing a nurse. I'm not doing it. So I heard it 3 times. Finally, the 3rd time I was like, okay, let me go ahead and get this done, but I'm going to flunk anyway. I'm not going to pass the test. I'm not going to do anything. I took the test, answered the questions, and for some reason, I passed all of them. So I got called for an interview, and they were like, you did very well on the test, so we want you to do an interview. I'm like, I'm gonna flunk that too. I'm not doing that because I don't want to be a nurse. I went for the interview. The only question that I remember them asking was, why do you want to be a nurse? But I didn't answer it, and I still don't know what that answer was. But when I got into LPN school, I went through without a hitch. No problems whatsoever. And I was telling God, I was like, you know what kind of personality I have. I'm more like, I need for you to do this, strict, not really strict, but stern in what I'm saying and what I expect you to do. I'm like, Lord, you know what kind of person I am. You know my personality. How am I going to take care of your people knowing me? And over the last 33 years, I figured out that he knew that I was what some people needed. So when I showed up, they need that figure that looks like the grandma, the auntie, the mom. So a lot of times throughout my nursing career, I get called grandma, auntie, or mom by my patients. And they listen to me, and it's different. And people try to say, well, how did you say stuff to people and they do what you ask them? That's because they understand the assignment. So it's an awesome journey and learning, growing into that role and knowing who I am and that this is where I was meant to be.
I love that, because, my journey as well was that I didn't even want to be a nurse. But I love that you, like, you were like, I'm not going to pass this test. And then you passed it. Like, what?
I know. It's like, what? Why would you do that to me? But now I understand why. Over the years, I learned to understand why.
Yeah, nursing is definitely one of those things in which because physiologically, if you can't take care of yourself, then nothing else matters, right?
Exactly.
It just doesn't matter at the end of the day. And so I love the journey of nursing. Okay, so let me ask you something. Tell me a little bit about who your mama was.
My mom, her name was Aileen Marie McGee, Clark McGee. My mom was a woman of strength, courage. I never saw her complain about anything. She was a single mother. She had 6 children. One died at like a month old, and the youngest, he passed at 12 years old. But she never stopped getting up. She never stopped giving or taking care of us. She did the best she could with what she had, and she was very protective. Nobody, the people that I grew up around, they were like, you don't mess with Miss Aileen, because Miss Aileen don't play about her children. But she was a faithful woman. She was, like I said, strong, and sometimes she was too overbearing. And I learned that I grew up like her, not being overbearing, but giving people a chance to make their own choices. She was the eldest of 6 children as well. So, and she took care of her siblings. But the strength that I saw in her it was just amazing. And I always felt comfort whenever I would go away and come back home. And when I would walk in the house, I would hear her say, "Hey, Sha," or she was like, "You're late," when I came in a little later. But her strength and her faith is the foundation that helped me. It grounded me, and that's what I relied on all my life. Not really realizing it until her passing, but I relied on that faith because she could get prayers through when nobody else could. And I always thought, I'm like, you got a red phone to connect. You have to. Because one time I was going somewhere and she told me, well, you shouldn't go. You don't need to go. And I'm like, I'm going. I got 14 miles down the road to my turnoff, and I heard something say, turn around, go home. I went back home, walked in. My mom looked at me talking about, oh, you're back, huh? I said, oh, and you funny too, right? I said, because I know what you did. She had prayed to God that I wouldn't go. And I didn't go. I'm like, I know what you did. I said, it's not funny. But she was that type of woman. She was a very strong and prayerful woman. And she had a list of prayers that she would pray for us, things that we have said to her, but she wrote it down on a piece of paper and, pray for Shaw's job, Kim, whatever they needed. She had that list and she always prayed that prayer.
So let me ask you something about, because there's some people, okay, that they don't feel a strong conviction of taking care of their parents once their parents get sick. But you took care of your mother, okay, yes, the entire time that she was sick. What gave you the conviction to be able, or to the desire to want to do that? What was different about you than you think it is in other people?
I think when I was 8, I remember in the house one day, I was sitting there at 8 years old. I saw my mom struggle, but like I said, she never complained. And I was just sitting there, and one day at 8 years old, I told God, I said, if I could ever get to a position where I can take care of my mom, where she wouldn't have to worry about anything, that I would do that. And I'm thinking, who knew that God listens to prayers of children? And so all these years later, it was just something that I felt inside that I needed to do, that I was supposed to do. And I had to do, because I think now, and it was like timely, because you see now in healthcare how things are going. And I just didn't want my mom to suffer or struggle like she was with us as children, trying to raise us and give us the values that we have today. But I think in a lot of ways, I feel like a very different, not different, better than anyone, but I just always felt a presence around me that guided me. Even though I did make my mistakes, they still guided me and held me accountable to where I would eventually come back to where I'm supposed to be in my purpose and in God's presence, doing what He expected of me to do. But my mom was just, I don't know, it was what I knew I had to do when I got older. That's why when I got out of the military, I got off active duty, but I went into the reserves so I could stay and take care of my mom and help her with my siblings and things. So it was just, to me, it was normal. It was like, you just do it without question. And people used to ask me, what is it like living with your mom? I said, well, it's my mom. You do what you do. It's no different to me. We grew together, we fought together, but it was just something that was in my spirit that I knew I had to do.
Now, let me ask you something. Do you think that there's a difference between the guilt of being a daughter or the guilt of being a nurse? And if you do, which one is louder?
The guilt of being a daughter. And because as her daughter, my mom, your mothers never see you as a full grown up. They want to treat you as their child. And I used to have to tell my mom, I said, Mom, because she would say things, I'm like, you can't talk to me like that. I said, I'm not a child anymore. But the guilt of being a daughter is not being able to, or feeling like you're not doing enough. And there were times when I asked her, I told her, I said, Mom, I said, what is it that you need? She never asked for anything, but I would have given her the world if I could, but she never asked. But I had the guilt of feeling like I didn't do enough to fix. And that was my problem, trying to fix everything for her. But she did tell me, she said, Sha, you take good care of me. And I was like, do I, Mom? I said, because I feel like sometimes I'm missing something. I'm missing something that you need, or I'm missing something when she started getting sick in that process. And, and being a nurse, I think sometimes we think that we're supposed to see everything. We're supposed to fix everything. And that plays a part in it. But with her passing, and it took me 3 years to get to this point, I realized I couldn't fix everything for her. It was not in my plan. And I realized I can't fix everything for the patients that I take care of. But the guilt of being a daughter is the loudest. It speaks the loudest.
Facts. I do believe that too. Yeah. So now, tell me a little bit about when your mother passed in 2023. You said it told you a different story. So walk us through when you first heard that story. What was the moment, the day, the season? Like what did that look like for you?
The day my mom, she passed April the 26th. I buried her on May the 2nd. And at first I was thinking, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. At least that's what I said to her. But I think it wasn't until afterwards that I started feeling it was either the guilt or the depression of not doing enough for her. So walking through that, after I buried her, about a week later, I only went to work. I would just get up and go to work. I didn't go to church. I didn't go outside. I would just go to work and come home. And I would sit in her room and just look over at the bed, at her bed that was there. And I was just thinking about what could I have done better to make her life better, to fix what was going on with her. And I struggled with that for several months, I think, until I think I started going back to church in October. But I struggled with that. But even in that struggle, I felt God's presence there because he wouldn't let me go any deeper. I just went far enough to know that, hey, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. And it's just like, it was overwhelming at first. And I kept looking. I don't know what I was looking for, what I was trying to find. But I kept hearing her voice say, you took care of me. You that I was there. She would always ask for me if I was gone, if my siblings were there. She always wanted, where's Shaw at? When she's coming home? And she always wanted to talk to me no matter where I went. If I went to Paris, I had to call her every day just to let her know that I'm coming back. And they didn't understand that kind of relationship because for 30 some years after I got out of the military, she and I were together. She, wherever I went, she went. If I got invited anywhere, I'm like, I got a +1. Can I bring her? They were like, sure. But if they had said no, I wouldn't went. Because unless my mom would say, well, I don't want to go this time, you go. But I wouldn't stay gone long. I was always back and forth. And during her sickness, I would leave the house. I would have to tell her, I'm gone for an hour. And I still stick to that. I would go do what I had to do and come back home and be back in the house in an hour so that she wouldn't get scared. And I slept in her room. I slept in a recliner for 2.5 years because my mom didn't like being alone. She was afraid. So I slept in a recliner for 2.5 years, but it was okay. It was okay. And now moving forward, I think what changed is I think I saw you on Facebook. And I was like, I need something to do. I gotta get out of this funk, and I need something to do. So I think that's when I called you, even though it was like I wasn't ready, but I was ready. I was trying to find my footing to make a difference and going to work and doing for the patients and everything. But it changed. It started changing, and the more I sat in it, I realized that taking care of her, I did what I could. She's all right now, and she still comes to visit. Her nickname was Ladybug. So whenever I see a ladybug, it reminds me of my mom. And the reason I named her that, I told her, I said, you know why I call you Ladybug? She said, no, why? I said, because ladybugs tend to come and sit. They don't move around a lot. They just watch. I said, and that's what you do. You sit and you watch. You watched over us and everything like that. And she said, I like that. I said, okay. My mom, she had some quirks, but she was funny. She was very direct like me. Like if she said something to you or you said something that she is good memory and she bring it back to your attention. So remembering those things about her has helped me to grow. And working on my business is helping me to grow. And recently I realized I was angry with God for taking her because she was the one there for me. She was always in the room. She was always praying. So I'm thinking, who else will do that for me? But once I learned that I can't be angry with God for taking what was his in the first place. That was his in the first place. And you can't fix what God has control over. So once I realized that, that's what made me realize that it's time to go. It's time to move forward.
That's so good. That's so good. So now tell me a little bit about, just tell me a little bit about you transitioning into business. Because when we first met, you were starting your business. What made you, what was the instinct that made you want to join, be a part of this coaching program?
What made me want to join was when listening to you on video and the things that you were saying about doing business. It's like it was something that I always wanted to. I used to tell my mom all the time, I said, I'm gonna start a business. She said, well, go ahead and do it. But I always found an excuse. Well, I gotta work. I gotta make sure you're okay. You know, I have to make sure that the money is coming in so that if you need anything, I can take care of that. I never put me first. I've never really put me first. I've always done for other people, and I was always on a back burner of things. I'm like, I'll do it for me later. You know, somebody else needs that now. So when starting the business, I understand it was like, wait a minute, I can still do this for other people, but I have to focus on me and how I'm going to go about doing it. And it's okay to want to do stuff for people and not and charge them and not feel guilty about it. Because at one time I thought that the gift of giving and caring was something that you didn't ask for money for. You always got rewarded by what you did, by by showing people that people out here really care. But you can do the same thing in a business and care and still get paid for it at a different level. So, but listening to you, I'm like, okay, that sounds good. And the first time I was like, no, I'm not gonna reach out. I think that I replayed it and then I was like, let me go ahead and reach out and send this message and see. And talking to you, it was something so encouraging about you and honest and sincere that, and it was like, some people carry the light of God with them, a light, a purpose, and you carry that. And I don't listen to people easily because I'm always, what I see. If I can pick up on like the good nature and things like that, but it was something about just everything you said in your presence. It felt like God was like, okay, we're gonna do this. And you carry such a light, and it's a humble light. You're not pretentious about what you're saying. And I heard all of this and I'm like, okay, this is something I can work and do. I can work with this person and she can help me find my place or guide me to where I need to be. So that was the greatest step, even though it took me a long time to get to where I am now because I was still struggling. But just listening to your first video and listening to the conversation that we had afterwards after I signed up, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do, and just working through it.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. Now I want to ask, because you came in, and I do want to say that when you came in with, I'm going to get this done no matter what. Okay. And you had been sitting on a house. You had 2 homes, right?
Yes.
You've been sitting on a house and you were like, well, I'm going to get that done at some point in time. I was like, no, we're going to get that done now.
Yes. Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about, kind of some of the biggest transformations that has happened since you've been in the program.
Starting with me is the growth and starting to learn to trust myself more. Because growing up, you do hold on to some of those words that people have spoken to you about, you'll never be able to do this or that or the third. But I'm learning to release that and walk into who I am because of my voice. I've always been told that your voice is intimidating. And for a while, I didn't talk a lot because, people like, well, I don't like your tone. I don't like this. And then you walk in a room and people, oh, I'm intimidated by you. I'm like, why? I'm not bothering you. I don't say anything to people most of the time until I have to. And when I have to, you might not like it. But I learned to appreciate the voice that God gave me because it's a voice that needs to be heard. And I've always told people I don't have a whisper voice. So I don't whisper. So if I said it and you heard it, it was meant for you. But I don't have a whisper voice, but it's the voice where people will take notice and they'll understand. So that transformation of walking into who I've always was, but now allowing it to show more and not not that I've ever been afraid to say what I wanted. I take that back. I guess I was. When I first went in the military, I didn't talk a lot. I was very quiet, and because my drill sergeant didn't even know I was there until like the last day when they allowed us to go through our clothing. He was like, "Where you come from?" I said, "I always been here." But again, I've been here the last 8 weeks. He said, "But I never heard anything from you." I was always doing that mothering thing, trying to make everybody else stay in line. But just the transformation is it. When I changed the business name and started doing this, it was like, okay, I got this. I can do this. I can push forward. And it's just that resilience of being able to get up and start over and keep going. Not looking at it's not a failure, but a setback as a way of a setup just to get better and learn more and more and doing your research and going. So the biggest transformation as far as business goes is believing that I can do it and knowing that I am going to do it and it's going to be successful.
You know, I am proud of you too, because this is the deal. So for those of you who don't know, when Kamala first came into the program, she wanted to help veteran women. And we were like, and this is a testament to, you don't get what you want, you get what you believe. Yes. And she was just not moving. Like she had a real estate, and the real estate was doing amazing. She went out and got that done, popping it off. And I was like, okay, this is great. But then with the veteran women, it was almost like you were just kind of just not moving in that direction. And I said, well, what's the deal? And once you said, I want to pivot, I was like, okay. So then once you pivoted, then it popped off because that's what you wanted to do. And I think that that's a valuable lesson for people, because sometimes people think, well, you know, I wanted to do that and I failed at that. But the reality was that no, you just found out what you didn't want to do. It's just all that is. Exactly. Now you're doing exactly what you want to do. Now, what is your business now?
It's called Optimized Care Solutions, and it's a home care consulting business where I'll be able to work with clients outside of the hospitals through care coordination, medication management, advocacy, and teaching and education, which is, and since I like to talk a lot to people when I'm around them, that I know that I will be able to provide more understanding for them outside of the hospital, because realizing that people come into the hospital and they are not considered in my current job. They call them by the body part. I'm looking for the hip, the knee, Dr. So-and-so's patient. And when you ask them what's the patient's name, they were like, I don't know. I said, well, I don't know either. Go find out the name, come back and ask me. That's because I think there's a whole human attached to them body parts somewhere. So they never come back and talk to me. They find a nurse that will tell them. And I think the lack of humanity and connection in the hospital environment is not giving the individuals enough to know about how to actually take care of themselves outside of that. So I want to be able to offer those services to give people a better understanding, health literacy, and how to navigate the system by having somebody that's in place that's willing to stand in that gap of advocacy for them so that they can get healthier, especially in our community. Because I find that our community, they don't know a lot. They don't ask a lot of questions. And the older ones, they're the doctor. I said, yes. And you're the patient. So you need to learn this so you can do better, so you can be better.
And this is the reason why this your business is incredibly important, because just because a doctor said it, I wish that I could get that out of everybody's head. Just because a doctor says it does not mean that it is a right. I remember I had a patient that came into the hospital one time and she had what's called round ligament syndrome, which basically is you get pregnant, you're little and you're tiny. I used to have it myself because it used to be incredibly small when I first got pregnant. And you just have, when your belly is growing, it has that round ligament pain. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And so once we figured it out, of course, we, Tylenol or whatever, but this guy wanted to give her a pregnancy category D drug. Well, if you'd given that to her, then the baby would have had anomalies for the rest of their lives. And I said, I had a preceptee with me one time, and I said, well, I'm just not, I don't feel comfortable giving it. That's what I told the preceptee I was going to tell him. I just wasn't going to give it. And so I said, I don't feel comfortable giving it. He said, well, that's the only thing she can have. And I knew that if he went and asked somebody else, they'd be like, well, why are you all giving it? Right. And so sure enough, he was like, that's what she needs. I said, well, she's not getting it. Not from me anyway. I said, you want to get somebody else to give it, then that's fine. And so he ended up writing a prescription for Tylenol and sending her to the house because that's what she needed. Sometimes you just got to deal with pain for a little bit for you to get to where you need to be. But that advocacy is huge, huge. And no one should ever go into the hospital. I'm going to tell you right now, what Kamala is doing is integral. I don't care who you are. She can do it all over the country. I don't care who you are. It is integral to your journey, because some people just don't know. They have no idea about what these healthcare providers are doing. They're not talking to each other at times. Exactly. And I'm not saying this across the board, but I am saying that advocacy is huge. And so if you are someone who is struggling with advocacy and you don't really know what to do or how to do it, then Kamala's your girl. So I hope that they reach out to you for sure. Now, before we get out of here, what I would want to do is I want to ask some rapid fire questions.
Like Jeopardy.
I love it. You're so funny. So now, what's your favorite movie?
Ooh, I have different ones. I like The Help when I saw that one. I like that one
too. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Bible verse or scripture?
It's 1 Corinthians 15 and 51. It's because my favorite saying is, if my living shall not be in vain if I can help somebody. Mm-hmm. And that talks about, the commitment and walking in God's purpose and doing what he needs me to do and be who I need to be to help his people.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Now, who is that person, living or dead, that you would like to have a conversation with?
I would like to have a conversation with my mom and Mahalia Jackson together, because both of them were strong women growing up, during their lifetime. And the song, My Living Shall Not Be in Vain, is what she wrote, Mahalia Jackson did. So it makes me wonder, what experiences did she have that she wrote and sang this particular song?
That's interesting. I thought that the Clark sisters sang that song. So Mahalia Jackson is the one who sang that song.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how do you define success?
Walking in your purpose, doing what your heart tells you to do, because your heart usually will not lie to you. It's just that our brain tries to outthink our heart, when our heart is the one that should be telling our brains what we should do, because the truth is in there. But we sometimes convince ourselves through society that, no, that's not what we should do. And being a giver, people see you giving, they were like, well, you too open-hearted, you too free-hearted. You can never be too free-hearted when you're helping and being there, supporting other people.
So what are you reading now?
I've been reading your book, and I'm reading my Bible more, trying to get more understanding, because I do Sunday school. I teach Sunday school, so learning that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, where can people find you?
Where they can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and what's the other one? Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Okay. All right. And they can find you under your business or under your name?
Under my name. One of my Facebook pages is under my business, Optimize Solutions, and then it's also connected to Kamala McGee on Facebook.
I love it. So listen, everyone, y'all need to go out. Y'all need to follow Kamala. Y'all need to, request her services. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are taken care of. And the people who are able to take care of you should have medical knowledge and should have nursing knowledge in order to be able to take care of you and to take care of you efficiently and effectively. I ask that you like, share, comment. Tell us what you like about these videos. Tell us what you would like to see in the videos. But Dr. Kamala, I'm loving everything that you're doing. And it is absolutely needed, especially at this time. So you ladies and gentlemen, have an amazing rest of your day. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Thank you.